In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a nice sales funnel chart here. As you can see here, we have the multiple steps here. We have this here showing the absolute, but also the percentage. We have this nice item. And if I refresh this, you can see here the sales funnel will move nicely along with it. So let's start to look how we can create this funnel. So let's start to look how to create a sales funnel chart in Chart.js. So the first thing what we need is to get our default code, which you can find in chartjs3.com getting started. This specific link is as well available in the description box. Once you're on the site, scroll down and just copy all of this. Copy this. And if you want to understand the code here, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. So then paste it all in there. I will cut out this title, put that in there. Save. Refresh. Alright, so now I have a chart here. What I want to do is I want to convert this chart, or at least make it bigger. So I will make this 80%. Save, refresh. Alright. And next what I want to do is I want to make this a horizontal chart. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to say here in the options, I'm going to say index axis equals Y. And the reason why for this is because we want to swap the axis. Basically, I want the labels on the side and the numbers at the bottom. So if I refresh, there we are. So now, once we have this, I'm going to remove 2 items of these here because I will have only 5 specific values. So let's do this. All right. And then here, I'm going to remove this. And what we could do here is, well, what is the common items here? Well, basically we have the email sent, for example. This is a sales funnel chart. Usually email sent, how many people received the email, and of course it could be any other type of sales funnel as well. How many clicked on it or opened the email, how many for example press the item to add to cart. Of course I'm just making up as I go, and then how many people eventually buy or maybe purchased here. Purchased. There we are. So if we save this, refresh, we have these items here because these labels will become very important for us. What I want to do is I want to remove this legend and I want to remove the tooltip. We don't need that. So I'm going to scroll down here as well, and then in the options just here before, so I'm going to say here after the skills, comma, I'm going to say plugins, and in this plugin here, what we want to do here is we want to say legend. And this will be display false. And then here, comma, and then we're going to say a tooltip. And we do here the same as well. Make sure that is correct. Well, not display, but enabled. Enabled equals false. Save, refresh. Now the legend is gone, and if I hover over these bars here, nothing happens. Beautiful. So now we have this. What I want to eventually is this. We're going to get, for example, if we send an email, let's say we send 300 emails. So we say here, constant, I'm going to use this. And this will be later on the main item I'm going to use. So we say mails sent. And I'm going to use here a snake uppercase design. Apparently this is a very common way. I'm going to put in here this. The reason why I'm doing it like this is because I have understood that in JavaScript this is probably a good practice to like a hard-coded number in this case here, but has a certain meaning. In this case, the meaning here is how many emails we send. So everything else should be calculated based on whatever here happens later on. So we have this now. What I want to next is we have this here, and I want to convert this because I want this eventually to be a floating bar chart. So the data here will be changed. So what I'm going to do here, bracket, put an enter, and here another enter, and then within here, I'm going to put in just simple values. So what I want to do with this is, because we have here how many emails we sent, we are going to assume we sent these emails, which is of course 0 to 100. What we want to do here, this number 18 must become 100%, and this should be 0% here. So we say 0, 100. And then I'm going to just make up some numbers here. Let's put in 5 items. Oh, sorry, that's not what I want to do. Don't save. All right, ignore that. And there we are. So I'm going to put in 5 items. So let's say here, just for the sake of it, we have that amount here, and then afterwards we have is maybe 20, 20 and 80. And afterwards what we have is 30 and 70, I guess we can make that one. And then we have 40 and 60, and finally we have 45 and 55. So what this truly means is that if here we have 100 people opening of 100%, then here is 80% basically, or sorry, 60% that received the email, and then we have here 40% that clicked on it, and then X amount whatever is left, etc, etc. And I'm not even sure if that is all correct here, but that will be later on. So now we have this. What I want to do here now is, if I save this, refresh, now we have this floating bar chart, and you can see we already get the funnel shape. What I want to do is here solve these items. So I'm going to say here comma, let's put a border at the side here, and this is what we call border skipped, and we're going to say here false. This is default for a bar chart because they assume you have them all at the side, and that's why they skip one of these specific items. Alright, so now we have this all working. What we could do here next is remove all of these grid lines here. They don't have any value, and including here the bottom that has no value because the numbers will be eventually displayed on the bar itself. So what I'm going to do here is on the scales, we can say X scales. I'm going to say here grid, and then we're going to say display equals false, comma, save. So now we remove the grid lines. What I want to remove as well is the border line here. So what I'm going to say here, comma, draw border equals false, and this will remove the border at the bottom here. You might say, well, hold on, I still see it. Yes, the reason why you see it is because this line as well is connected with the y-axis grid. So I'm going to say here, comma, grid, and then I'm going to say here, display equals false. If I save this, refresh, now it is fully disappearing. Same here, draw the border, or at least remove that border, save. And then what I want to do is I want to remove the ticks at the bottom, not on the right side or on the left side here, because these are our steps basically of the sales funnel. So what I'm going to do here, comma, I'm going to say here, oh sorry, not in here. We're going to put a grid after the grid. I'm going to say ticks, and here display equals false. Save, refresh, there we are. So now this looks quite nice. What we need to do now is to create a plugin, and this plugin should connect these lines here. So what I want to have this so-called funnel line here and here and here, etc, etc. So what I'm going to do here, let's see, well, let's make sure it's correct. We can see here the options, and then in the options, I guess that's the last one here. Yeah, all right. We're going to put a comma. We're going to say plugins. In the plugins, we're going to say here funnel shape. I guess you can give it anything you want, or funnel chart, maybe like that. That's maybe better. Funnel chart. So then I'm going to do here, enter, enter, slash, slash, this, and I'm going to say here the funnel chart plugin block, and I'm going to say a constant funnel chart as the object name, ID funnel chart, comma. And then what we're going to do here is when would we like to draw these lines that's connecting with each other. So in this case, I want to draw them before we have anything else. So before we draw the data sets, I want to make sure that these lines here at the bottom will be drawn. So I'm going to say here, oh, sorry. What we're going to say here is before data sets draw. So before the data sets has been drawn, this will be drawn along with it. So then what I'm going to say here is chart arcs and plugin options, but we will not be using these two here. We only use this one here, and then what we're going to do here is constant, and this is of course a object destructuring in Chart.js. If you don't understand what I'm doing here and what this means, I highly recommend you to watch my video in the description box, understanding Chart.js object destructuring. Very, very important to understand. So I'm going to do here CTX, because we want to draw, we want to have here probably the data we will be needing. So we need the chart area, and we will need top, left, bottom, right, and then not sure. The width and height might be. These, some might not even be necessary, so we might be able to remove them afterward, no problem. Then I'm going to say scales, X and Y. So now we have this here. I'm going to say ctx.save to save all variables above, and then we can start to work on it. So what I want to do here, this is very important. I want to draw the line, and the line needs to start here, going to there, and then go down here, here, and then eventually close it up here. So this is a custom shape, and that will mean that we need to start working on it. So let's start to do this right now. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, I'm going to say ctx.begin path, because we want to create a shape, but we will say this shape is independent of any other shape, so that's why begin path, nothing should be connected with this shape. So then we have now a fresh start. So now what we want to do here is, well, let's give it a proper background color. So I'm going to say fill style, and the fill style is the background color, and I'm going to use here the standard Chartjs colors. I'm going to use here RGBA, and then we're going to make this grayish color, so it's 102, 102, 102, comma 1. I guess that should be 1. That's fine. So we have a solid color here, or no, I guess a solid color is fine. What we could do as well is we want to maybe have a border line. In this case, I'll make them exactly the same, but if you want to have maybe this lighter, that's fine as well. So we're going to say stroke style for the border color equal, copy this, put that in there, and then we make this solid. Alright, so now we have the colors. What I want to do now is start to work with the positioning. For the positioning, we're going to use a special command, and this command I need to show you. This is a built-in Chart.js command. So we're going to say here console log, and what I'm going to use here is the chart, basically the chart object we are getting, and then we say here get data set meta index or data set index 0, and then we say here dot data. So if I save this, refresh, alright, interesting, we get an error here. So let's see here, get datasets meta is not a function. So let's see here, am I correct? Sorry, it is not data sets because it's the data set, because we're going to select here a single data set. So no S. There we are. So if I do this, you can see here we get a lot of variables here, and all of these variables become very, very useful for us. And the reason why is simply this. You can see here, it selects the base, which is the starting point, that's this point here. It selects the height, where it is officially starting, and in a bar chart it starts at the center. So the height here, or maybe even this part here, it could be one or the other, but most likely it will be in the center here. It should be in the center if I'm not mistaken. And then, and this center can give us a headache, so we need to be sure of that. We need to be prepared for this one. This will be later a very useful item. And then we have here the width. The width would be from this side to there. So that is, of course, for index 0, which is the red one. But if I click on the next one, you can see here, it increases or changes here. As you can see here, we have the X and Y and etc. etc. We get here the width. The width now is smaller compared to the 450. You can see all this information. So this information becomes very important for us because we want to draw starting here. Now we can use here our starting point. Well, let's start to draw those things. Let's see. So what do we need here? So in this case, what I need here is first of all to select a CTX move tool. So I'm going to say here CTX.move tool, and the move tool will indicate where is the dot starting. In this case, it will be this point here. So how do we get this here? Well, what I'm going to do here is we're going to get here the base, if I'm not mistaken. That's this one here. The base is this side here, basically the starting point of the line. So I'm going to say here chart.get data set meta dot, and then what I want to say here dot data, then here I'm going to say index 0 dot base. So that's the first one. But of course the move tool has an X and Y, and this is now our X value. So what is the Y value? In this case, the Y value is, well, I'm going to say here chart dot get data set meta, and this is index 0. Oh, I can see already I make a mistake here. I need to put in here parentheses for index 0. I'm going to indicate the index 0 with a dot data, and then this must be a bracket. So this one parentheses, but this one bracket, because this is a function and this is basically an array. So this is very important to understand the difference. And then we're going to say here data 0 and then dot y. So if I have this here, then what I'm going to do is, we have this move tool. What I want to do is, I'm going to say here now line 2. And a line 2, it basically means to prepare the drawing. This one here, we define the starting point. Now we have here preparing of the drawing of that line. And it will be here x and y. And then let's see, if I need to go from here all the way to there, our baseline here, or this one, needs to be changed to whatever this is here. And if I'm not mistaken, we should have here the width. So if I look here, the width, that's this one here, but of course in index 0, that should be here the width, that will be 450. So if I would just change this, well, this one should maintain, we should have something happening. Of course, nothing yet, because I forgot to say the following. I'm going to say here ctx.stroke to draw the item. Alright, interesting. We don't have anything yet. So let's see what is going on here. We have the width and we have the base. And let's change this to 1 if I do this. Oh, alright. I guess it worked, but for some reason it did something very weird. Alright, there we are. So refresh. We have this line here. Alright, and I was hoping this should respond. And that's why we're using this command here. But apparently we have here something that doesn't respond yet. Anyway, so you can see here we get the width, but I'm surprised that the width is still not fully here. Probably we need to position it, because here, this part here is related to this one if I'm not mistaken. So if I say plus left, it should move this to the left side. So let's say here, plus left. If you're wondering why left, because of this one here. Alright. Of course, I'm at the wrong location. Here, and let's see here, it should be this one. Save. Alright, so this is the left part. I was hoping for the effect here, but I'm going to check later on. What am I missing? Most likely I'm missing something here. So once we have this one here, what I want to do now is we need to push this down. Remember, we have here now the center. As you can see here, this part here, the Y, indicates the true center of this. So what I need to know is basically what we call the thickness of the bar. And the thickness of the bar, well, we can find this information here as well. If I click on one of these arrays, or let's click here at the bottom to make sure we have the latest ones. Get there. Then you can see here what we have. We can see here probably the thickness would be considered the height. And the height is approximately 35 pixels. So that would mean this here center is not 35, but it's 35 divided by 2. So what we need to do here, 35 divided by 2, and that plus on there, we should be here at the bottom. So what I'm going to do here now is, I'm going to say here is height. So we're going to, let's grab this one, height here. Or maybe like this, we can grab this one here. We're going to say here, plus this, plus height, divided by 2. And then what I want to do here is to make sure that this is correct by putting it parentheses. So I want to give the division should be first, and then we add them up. This is very important. Give it priority. So we're going to copy this, put it in here, save, refresh. Alright, so that works, although it is absolutely an eyesore for me that it doesn't work here with the moving. I know I had it working first, but apparently something is not working here. Anyway, doesn't matter. So we have this now. So what I want to do now is start to look at the connecting item here. So how do we do this? Well, we need here basically, so we have this line here, it starts here, goes there. What I need to do now is, because this is the order in Canvas, we need to follow the order. So if I want to go here, I must go from this to get to this, and then we go here, and then we go back here. So this is very important. So we have to make the line exactly as how you would draw it, or else it will not work, or you will get a weird shape later on. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to say here next one, that's another ctx.line2. ctx.line2, which is the next line here. Now we're going to grab this. I'm going to put this in here. And remember, now we need to jump to the next part. And now it becomes interesting because here it should be the starting point. So I need to see where that is. So I'm going to say, first of all, number 1, because we're going to move now to data index 1. And then what I want to do here is we need to look what is then the connecting item. And this one, I have to double check this one. This one is slightly tricky for me as well. Put a comma here. Let's do this one first. I'm going to put this here. And make sure this is chart. And I'm going to say here, data will be 1. And this will be 1 as well. If I save this now, refresh, there we are. But of course, what is happening now is it is basically going down here. So what I need to do here is we have the height, we say plus. Well, I guess we can do here minus. We can deduct it. If we deduct that, we should go up here. All right. So the reason why is because we're always in the center. So that's why it moves here up. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure it goes to this point here. So for that, I have here the width plus left, and this is of course not what I need because I need to look here. We have the data. Let's see here. What we're going to grab is most likely, hold on. All right, so I'm going to work on, we're going to do some adjustments here. I look at my notes and this is a real tricky one. So what I need to do here, let's work on this one. We have this one here and the width here becomes a tiny issue for us here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to adjust this tiny issue here. We're going to put in this data set plus data 1, which is correct. And we have here the width. So I wonder what even happens if we have that. We have it goes down here. All right. But the width here plus left, that is not what we need. We need to say here, this should be the X itself. Let's see if I save that and go here. All right. So there we are. So we get some movements here. Of course, it still struggles because of all the adjustments. So what happened exactly? Well, the X value, we'll always get the highest value here if we look at basically at this here, and then it grabs 80. So because of that, we probably can solve the width here as well by just putting here an X. If I save that, and I can even remove this here, save that, refresh. There we are. So that's why we had an issue with our moving effect. So now we have this working again. So now what I want to do from here, I want to go all the way here. And let's see, everything else here is fine. So what we could do here, and let me just, instead of copy pasting, because it's quite tricky this one, I'm going to make another line too. And I'm going to say a chart dot, and then what I want to do now is, what we need is basically the base. I guess this one, we could just grab this one, and in this case, why the base? Because the base defines the starting point. It was here first, but now we are moving in index 1. So we're going to do this. We say here, number 1, then the base, comma. All right, so now we have this. What is the next item? Well, the next item is quite similar, except now we can copy this. You can just copy all of this here, I guess. That should be fine. And then we have to make sure that this is, of course, always index 1 here already. So basically, the first two is the line for the upper line, and then the next two would be the lower line connecting with the index 1. So if I save this, refresh, now we have the line going here. So you can see here, this part here, you might say, do I need to do another line like this? This is a tricky one. Well, guess what? No need. There's the easy way to do it. We had the begin path here. So what we can do here, this is a nice trick that Canvas API allows. We can say here ctx.close path, and what happens now is, if I save that, refresh, it will automatically connect this line here. So it understands this. And if you've noticed, sometimes in my other videos, I put this at the bottom. And the reason why is that if we do a stroke first, it will draw first the lines, and then it will not close anymore because we already have drawn it. By that time, it's too late to close the shape. But in this case, we must close the shape. Why? We want to have the background color within here. So what I'm going to do here, now, I'm going to say here, fill, save, refresh. There we are. So now we have this here. I guess I'm just going to put this on 1. That'll be fine. All right. So now we have this solid color here with the lines. What I want to do is next is also at the bottom. But of course, we don't need, let's remove this, we don't need to do them one by one. We can do a function here. So go to the function, and this function, we can call this our, I guess, what is the right term? Funnel or trapezium. I'm not really good in writing that one word. So it's I guess a trapezium or something like that. But what you can say here, special shape. I'm going to make it simple for myself. I should know the English word for that, but I forgot how to spell that. So apologies for that. Anyway, we cut that out, put that in there, move that in. So then we save this, refresh. So basically now nothing really happens because we didn't activate the special shape. So for this, the special shape should have, well, let's see how many variables we need. We need here this variable here, which is basically our index number. And is there any other variable that we need? Well, let's see. Let's call this one first. We're going to put in here the index number here. Oh, sorry, we don't need we don't need a function. What we need is a for loop, and the reason why is we have to do it how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4 times. We have to do it 4 times, loop it through the data we already have. But so that's why we need a for loop. We don't need a function because a function would not be necessary in this case. So I'm going to say here for, and you might say why not for each? Well, I need to go 4 times and not for every single item, because the last one, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it will continue here as well. So I don't want that. So I'm going to say here, let I equals 0. Then I'm going to say we keep on looping I as long as I is, and the I needs to be smaller than what exactly? Well, in this case, we can use the data here. We're going to use a for loop. I guess we can say here, or maybe even like this. We can just even get this one here, the data. Let's copy this. Say your dot length. Here's the dot length. And then what I want to do is we can say here -1, because I want to deduct 1 from it. Because what will happen if I have here the length? We'll have probably 1 too many. Sorry. So then once I did that, I++, add that in there. Let's cut this out, put that in there. Save that, refresh. Alright, so this works, but now what I want to do is I want to put an index here. We're going to say always index. This is as it loops 0, 0, 0. We don't do this one here because we only have one data set. That's why we only select the one data set, which is normal for a sales funnel. And we say here, this is number 1. We say here I+1. We just increase the I and put a plus. Same here, I+1, and then it will just loop nicely. Alright, +1, and finally here I+1. Have we missed out anything? I. Alright, so this data here should be an I, this needs to be an I, everything else not. So only the data, or basically the white text, that needs to be adjusted. If I save this, if I loop now, there we are, and look at the animation that works nicely. So we're done with one part. We're done with one part. We have to do still the other item. So what I want to do next is to put in here the value. Remember, we had this value here above, and this needs to be converted based on our percentages here. And this here should represent the percentages for our sales funnel. So what I'm going to do here now is in here, and what we can do here, let's see, this is our for loop. We need to make sure we do here ctx.restore to undo anything, and then here we're going to work on the labels. For the labels, we're going to use another for loop, but in this case, because here we had the loop, but we only loop it 4 times. We want to make sure that it was not continuing on here for index 4, because after there's nothing. But now we need here, well, basically 5 items, 5 data points. So what I'm going to do here is a for loop, and we're going to say here for, I'm going to say here let I equals 0 again, and maybe we can use another word, maybe here let j, just to be not in conflict with this, but it should be no problem normally. let's say here J, we're going to loop J as long as this will be exactly the same, except now I'm going to grab this. We can just grab this entire code, put it in here. However, here it's plus plus J plus plus, and here no more deduction of -1. So then in here, what I want to do is, well, we can just start to draw something. First of all, let's think what we need. Well, first of all, I want to have here a font. So I'm going to say ctx.font equals, I'm going to say here bold. Then I'm going to say here, let's make this 15 pixels. And 15 pixels and font family will be sans serif, which is a default font family in Chart.js. So once we have this, enter. What I want to do now is ctx.fillStyle for the font color. And for this, I'm going to use just the basic color as well. We're going to say here, similar to this here. So that should be fine. There we are. So once I did this, then what we can do here is to do a ctx.fillText and indicate now to draw the text. What I'm going to do here should be like a text. This should be an X and this should be the Y variable. So what I really want to do is I want to put it in the center. So we have to look here now, how can we put this in the center? Well, what we need to do here is we're going to get basically, remember when we had here the very top here with the width here, we have here the information. What I want to do here, oh, we don't even have to do it like that. We can do it very easy, because let's go up here. We get this here, remember this one? So what we could do here is just get this item here, and then we say .x, very similar to this. I'm going to copy this, and that will be our position. And the reason why is this is by default, if we say here solid hard-coded 0, it is 100. So 100 is always at the very end here. And I don't know what happened. We jumped a bit down, sorry. So it's always at the very end here. Let me just show you that. And then what I'm going to do here for now is the horizontal, or sorry, the vertical level. And the vertical level, what can this be? Well, in this case, what we can say here is this, because it will be always in the center of the bar on the vertical level. So that will make it easy for us. We can just grab this, going to put it in there. We're just going to say here the Y, and then what I want to do here is index J. Remember, it's J. This should be this one here. Save that, refresh. There we are. So now you can see here it works, but it moves at the very end. So what I need to do now is I need to deduct this. But you might say, all right, all we need to do is to deduct it by 2. The answer is no, but I'm going to show you what will happen. If I save that, there you are. We are very close to it, but it's not. So let me explain why this happens. So it starts here, but it will deduct by 2. The deduction of 2 is from this point all the way to here. So we have a problem here, because we don't get the center, but we get basically the center of the canvas. So now it's really in the center of the canvas, but not the center of the bar. So what I want to do is I want to have the deduction of the bar. So I need to know what is the width of the bar. Well, we can make a formula for this. So I'm going to make it very simple. So we have this, we have here. This is already by default the very end of the corner. So what I need to do here is basically say, I want to remove the left side here. This amount of pixels creates basically the miscalculation. So if I deduct these pixels from the left side to here, then we will get the right amount. So if I say this, and like that, if I save that, now it is in the center, or at least the width and the calculation is perfectly in the center, but visually it's not. And the reason why is now we have the width calculated divided, but then we remove this left side. We have to add it up after we recalculated it. So what we're going to do here, once you have this, then we're going to say here plus left. Save, refresh. Alright, so now you might say, well, hold on, we're still not here. Well, let me explain what this truly does, because we need to put the text alignment in the center. Right now the text is not aligned in the center. So let's do that one, and then we should be done with that. I'm going to say ctx.text align equals center. Save, refresh. There we are. So now we are beautifully in the center here. What I want to do is, because if you look at it very carefully, our font is not really center, or basically the baseline. And the reason why is the baseline is not at baseline middle, which is a very common CSS table command. So we're going to say here, text baseline equals middle. And then it should be perfectly center. So there we are. We are in the center and then in the center. So now we have this one here. What I want to do now, of course, is to get the nice values. So to do that, we're going to create again a variable for that, or a function to calculate. And I'm going to replace this here. So what I want to do here then is, let's look at it. So what do we need here? Well, we're going to grab here, well, let's make a constant. And what I want to do here is the comparison or the deduction from these two items here. This one minus there. This one minus that, etc., etc. By doing that, we will get the difference. So this one here, minus 0, is 100%, which is correct. Then from 80 minus 20 would give us 60%, etc., etc. So let's go here. So I'm going to say a constant. And I'm going to say here the data point percentage. That's basically what we are calculating here. And this data point percentage is the difference between the two. So how do we get this? Well, remember, we had this here in our the object destructuring. So we're going to grab this, put it in here, and then we're going to see dot data sets index 0. Then we say here dot data index 0, and then here, because this is here like a double array, an array within an array. So this is index 0, and then if I want to grab this, is index 0. If I want to grab this, is index 1. So what I want to do is I want the highest value deducted from the lowest value. So I'm going to say here, index 1, deduction of this from that, and this should be index 0. Alright, so once we have this, I want to get this percentage here, and I'm going to put that percentage in here for now. Let's save that, refresh. So now we get that, but it's always 100 because I forgot to put in here the I or the J in our case, the J loop value. Alright, interesting. We get a mistake here. Let's see. Of course, it's not the data sets here. This should be, of course, 0. What we really focus on is this one here. That's the data set that should change, or the data point. So if I save that, now we should have all of these values. Look at that. Alright, we have this, but this is just the percentage. Now I want the absolute values. And I guess what we should do is the percentage should be in brackets, and the absolute value should be shown as a normal value, basically, without the brackets. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do here a backtick. This is very important. Backtick is just below your keyboard. And this is ES6 template literals. So basically for concatenation. I'm going to put in this item here, but then I'm going to say here in parentheses, and we're going to say here percentage. So that's number 1. Then what I want to do is I want to have another item which is the absolute value. So we're going to say here we need to calculate that. So if I save this already, you can see here this works. But then what I want to do is here, let's say here 333 or whatever the value would be. That's the one I want. So I want to make sure that this value will recalculate in percentage. All we have to do here is basically say constant, and I'm going to say here let's call it the absolutes or something like that. Absolutes, I will just call the absolutes, but I guess there should be a better name for this. I guess data points in absolutes or something, or quantity. That's maybe a better one. Quantity. All right, so then we have the quantity, and the quantity is, let's go back here up. Remember this number here, email sent. How many emails did we send? And I'm going to say here, multiply this by, or sorry, we're going to divide this by our percentage, multiply by 100. If we do this, you should have here the quantity showing here the item. Save, refresh, And we get here exactly the opposite. So what did I do here? Maybe I would say, of course, exactly the opposite what I need to do here. My bad. So here divide by whatever, or multiply the percentage, divide by 100. So then you can see here we have this, and then this here maybe we could say here in absolutes, or you can round them, but it's alright. I will ignore that for now. But basically this is the way you create a nice funnel chart. Of course, here we could change this more, I guess, with this here, but this will not give you a very desirable outcome. If I do this here, what will happen is this will have a slightly item that's quite off. So basically what we need to do here is recalculate this one, and that might be another video separate for that. How we can make sure that it's always in the center no matter what, because the center in this case is always 50. So 50, and then you have to calculate to balance that out. But I will make a separate video for that. Maybe I guess a part 2 would be very appropriate for this. So let's put this back here. 70. There we are. So this is, I guess, part 1 of the item, and there will be a part 2 for this, fixing how you can put in the center, and maybe we can go much deeper into this.